We have a lot going on, I think, as you all know. But what was most important for us for the last couple of years is to be able to get ourselves organized and moving ahead and listen to each other and think about the projects that we're working on. So again, as we all know, and I think we've heard over and over again and need to respect that this organization is composed of the chapters, and the chapters form our strength, and we work well together with the chapters and national projects, the working groups, and the national board supports all of the work that is going on in VFP. And I think we see our responsibility as bringing all those groups together and bringing individual members of Veterans for Peace together, and then taking a look at those organizations with which we can form coalitions, because we know as we move ahead into 2025 that we have to get bigger and we have to get stronger, and we really have to move together in one voice, and that is the voice for peace in this country and the voice for peace all over the world. As you all know, we have some older projects happening, like the Golden Rule and the project on nuclear armaments and our support for the Treaty on the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons. It's one of our older and most important projects that continues. The Golden Rule has completed one of the grand loops and been able to speak to communities and to get information out there on what is going on across the world and the devastation that we're all facing if we don't gather together and work on a project that says, okay, the United States will not strike first, the United States will hold back. So there's information that we need to learn about, and we need to continue to support the TPNW. Deported vets, of course, this is on my mind because this project has just brought home again another deported veteran who, after 26 years of being out of the country, was able to cross the border into the United States. Thank you for that project, and thank you to the San Diego chapter for continuing to support this really important project. And it's going to become even more important, we know, as we move into 2025, with all of the rumblings and the hysteria from this administration that's coming into talking about deporting people. We need to stop it, and we certainly are the most appropriate, I think, organization to step out there and say, Veterans for Peace, to stop this immediately and to be heard with this project. Another project that we've spent a number of years working on is our work with Chapter 160, the Vietnam chapter, particularly this year because we're looking at 50 years since the end of the war in Vietnam. We need to use this information as a stepping stone to say, this is what the United States government started that was ended 50 years ago, and we need to understand the warmongers and the military-industrial complex that continues to say we want to use the same weapons that we used in Southeast Asia. We're using, again, the anti-personnel weapons. We're using the pellet bombs. We have sent them already over to Ukraine. They're being asked for. We need to understand that these weapons don't just harm those in warfare now, but they continue to harm people 50 and 60 years later when they land unexploded in lands. So we need to take a look at what's happening there. And I think a project that we're working with World Beyond War in Merchants of Death, and that is to identify the military-industrial complex, all of the industry, the banks that are implicated, and say, we need to put a stop to this now. So Merchants of Death has a series of video programs that they put out there, and please take a look at their proceedings if you haven't yet. They hand out subpoenas to those organizations that are implicated and say, you need to come to these trials. The Merchants of Death And it's also a good example of what Veterans for Peace has done and what we will do, what we are doing in coalition with World Beyond War. We have put into place a relatively new paper, Peace and Planet News, that you all may know about. Please order Peace and Planet News. And I say this as somebody who has been around organizing for years. Handing information out when we go to actions and go to demonstrations gives people important information on what we are doing and why we are doing this. It helps inform the public. And I can't say this strongly enough. Again, we have something to hand out from Veterans for Peace. So I think I can stop with a couple of these examples and just say we're moving together, I think, stronger and in greater unity than we have in the past years. And we need all of you to work with us. You will hear different projects from both Josh Shurley and from Mike Ferner. And I would say that most of our projects and what we're talking about is working together with the chapters and the projects and a coalition with other organizations, and specifically getting in touch with unions, being out there if we're near the docks and trying to stop shipments, and going to those bases where there are drone pilots. We have a lot of work to do. I really believe that Veterans for Peace can be a face of the peace movement and a very important face, because we are the folks that have been to war, have seen it, and can say it is nothing but death and destruction for people, for the environment. And our responsibility today is to stop it and to move forward in a positive manner. Josh, do you want to go next?
Sure, happy to do that. Let me get myself up here. Okay, here we go. All right, yeah, hey everyone. Thank you, Susan. Good to be with you all. I'll just echo a lot of some of the same points that Susan raised. She put it quite well. You know, we are. It's been a heck of a year, especially the second half of the year, right? Lots going on. I'm sure there are a lot of questions, and looking forward to hearing from some of you all. Yeah, it's an exciting time. We've been able to get quite a lot done, even though, you know, things have been a little short in recent months. We've had some challenges. No executive director, you know, and going in that seat for pretty much the second half of 2024. But we have done surprisingly well, I think, despite that. But yeah, there's a lot going on, as Susan alluded to. You know, the genocide rages on in Palestine, day 436, I believe it is today. And I think, you know, for a lot of us, that remains at the forefront of our minds and you know, right there with everything that we do. On top of that, all the conflagrations going on around the world, from Ukraine to Syria, and all the saber rattling and all the other places, right? And it's a dark hour that we're facing. You know, January 20th, things are going to change, right? Probably for the most part for the worse. Donald Trump coming in, we know that he has pretty much agreed to give a green light to the Greater Israel Project. You know, as if that's possible that someone can be more pro-Israel than Joe Biden. I think he's gonna give it his best. So this will mean a lot of things. This will mean, one thing I think it's going to mean is a lot of increased opposition here at home. Now that we have Donald Trump coming back in office, I feel like the Democrat Party will suddenly remember what it's like to be against war and genocide and all the environmental destruction and the nuclear saber rattling and some of these things, or at least they will pretend to be for the next 4 years. But that does provide us, I think, you know, an opportunity to get out there and to leverage the veterans' voice. One of the things I think that it's good to kind of talk about, it was about a decade ago, I think it was, when Veterans for Peace started doing the messaging around peace at home, peace abroad. And and I think that was a really good and useful framework, right, to drawing those connections between what's going on overseas, the militarism, the war, and the militarism and the war that we see right here in our home communities. And so, our voice and highlighting those connections are going to mean a lot. And as Susan talked about, really, it's going to be in many cases about building coalitions. Solidarity really must be our watchword going forward, whether that be amongst each other, amongst the different projects, committees, different chapters, also with other peace groups, right? Whether that be the folks that we're used to working with, Code Pink, World Beyond War, for example, National Lawyers Guild, ACLU, all sorts of other groups. Patrick, a little while ago, mentioned the Uhuru 3, right? And that's the Uhuru Solidarity Movement is another group that we've sort of had made some good connections with in 2024. And that's been something that we've been working on. A few of us are putting a lot of effort in with that. And for those who joined a little late, as Patrick mentioned, the Uhuru 3 had their sentencing yesterday morning and received no jail time, right? So, they technically are still convicted of the conspiracy charge, but no jail time, no prison time for them. So that's basically pretty good news. But remember, this is all under the Biden administration, and I think what we can really expect is a lot more, cracking down on the truth tellers, on the peace seekers, and that is something that's that again we need to really rise and meet the moment. But yeah, we've got some great things in place. Susan also mentioned Peace and Planet News. Peace and Planet News has now been sort of elevated to being a national project of Veterans for Peace. We've also officially formed the labor working group. Steve Morse and a few other folks are working hard on that. That's going to build solidarity, build connections with the labor movement. And in a lot of ways, that's really where, the strength in movement lies, right? That ability to hold actions, to strikes, whether it's blockading, ports. There have been the People's Solidarity actions at Travis Air Force Base a few hours from here, kind of in the Sacramento area, sort of. Been shutting down the gates there sporadically. It's going to be things like that, just getting out there, putting ourselves on the line and doing what we have to do to put ourselves out there and stop this madness. But there's going to be increased opposition, increased backlash, everything from infiltration, agents provocateur, those are very real things. Not to mention, this attempt to strip us of our 501c3 status. There's a lot of uncertainty out there, and so we are in many ways poised to jump in the fray. There's a lot of questions we are still seeking the answers for, and there's just a lot of unknowns. But again, this takes us back to that idea of connections and solidarity, and this is when it's more important than ever. Project 2025 in many ways is coming after veterans healthcare. A lot of us are tuning into that. There was some testimony in front of Congress today. SOVA and Veterans Healthcare Policy Institute are working hard on trying to raise the alarm and get that message out there to the public that these people are coming for veterans healthcare. And so, so many of these different fronts that are these assaults on humanity really in some way, shape, or form kind of come back to something that Veterans for Peace does, whether it be SOVA, whether it be looking at mass deportations. Well, we've got, the Deported Veterans Advocacy Project, whether it be nuclear proliferation and all the madness there. We've got the No Nukes Working Group. We've sort of got something in place for just about any of these threats to humanity. And so, our work is cut out for us. Another big piece, and maybe Mike Ferner can talk about this, is the GI resistance. The numbers so far have been pretty modest, but I would expect that to get to grow in the coming year, especially with this talk about deploying troops here at home. And I think that's where we're really going to see some pushback, among the rank and file. whether that be National Guard troops, something like we saw 4 years ago in a few limited areas, or there's talk of deploying active duty troops at home, and there's a lot of what ifs and possible scenarios. But I wouldn't put it past this administration to at least try to take some of these drastic actions. So it's going to be really important that we are there, ready to support, ready to help, and just to lend our voice and get out there and do what we have to do. So let's see, a couple of other things I just wanted to mention really quick. I also chair the membership committee. Membership has been growing, a little bit. I think this last year we have seen an uptick in new members joining. We've been averaging between anywhere from the mid 40s to around 60 or so new folks joining VFP every month, and we're retaining anywhere from 70 to 80. So that's decent, but we could do better. And, that's something that we constantly need to work better on, is the coordination between some of these things, working with chapters and doing some of that stuff. We have a film screening. Maybe Mike Ferner can talk about this in March, a film screening and discussion event. And I think we might be using one of these, Southeast regional Zoom sessions to facilitate some of that. Possibly we'll talk about that later, but and that's going to be big, right? And that's going to be a big draw, especially for post 9/11 veterans, and really, highlighting some of their issues and their needs. Susan mentioned the Vietnam trip coming up in the spring. There will be one more delegation to Vietnam. That's going to be a big one, 50 years since the end of the American war there in Southeast Asia. And then coming off the heels of that, of course, we roll into the summer and possibly an in-person convention. Maybe we might talk a little bit more about that. There are no definitive plans in place, but there are, as Donald Trump would say, concepts of a plan. But we'll talk a little bit about that, and we'll definitely know more very soon. Let's see. That's about it. That's about all I have. Other than that, happy to be here with you, and we have some impactful and consequential days ahead, and I'm looking forward to all of us meeting this moment together, renewed and inspired for the new year. Very proud to be here with you all, and thanks to Patrick and to Jim for organizing these meetings. Y'all have done a great job, and I'm just happy as ever to be here. And I guess that's all I got. I'll shut up for now, and I don't know if you want to hear from Ferner or however you want to do this, but I will shut up.
All right, Mike, you're on.
Okay, thanks, Jim. Jim actually invited me to be on this when he thought I was somebody, but as I've tried to remind him that my wife has said more than once, you're a has-been who never was, but I do appreciate the opportunity anyway. And thanks also to Jim and Patrick for expanding this forum. It's such a good idea. As has been mentioned, the genocide in Gaza and the madness in Ukraine are certainly at the forefront of everybody's thinking in Veterans for Peace. And a lot of times, I'll speak for myself, some of the work that keeps us so busy, keeps me so busy, is a good way to try to stay sane in all the madness, because you just can't be thinking about it all the time. I wanted to jump real quick to our website and show you our slider. The student pledge against the war industry is one thing that not everybody's going to be involved in, but if you see yourself at demonstrations with students, this is something that the Broome County Peace Alliance and chapter in Binghamton, Jack Gilroy and so forth, put together for students to renounce working with or even interviewing for a weapons company. So if you click on that, there's material there. There's a QR code where you can reproduce the pledge and get it around to students. Another one is the appeal for redress, version 2. It's been around for a while. It had been slow taking off, but as Josh mentioned, Lord knows what's going to be happening. We're going to have more GIs doing what they did after the invasion of Iraq and the appeal for redress initial one, version one, that Jonathan Hutto and other people organized, where we had a few thousand people respond to that. So that, again, that is in the slider. And thanks to Chris Smalley for the reworked graphic. And if you click on that, it takes you to the description of what it is. And you can take a look at the letter that you can send to Congress. And you can then go ahead and submit it. So this is for active duty, guard, and reserve. I've been sorting out the VFP members who have not been active duty for a long time, who sometimes mistakenly sign it. So please, the screen sharing and stop sharing. Okay, so those are some things that we know about, hopefully, and can do just because they're good things to do. Chapters and independent members. I should mention that independent members are a very important part of this. Where I live in Toledo, we had a chapter many years ago for a brief time, but other than that, we've never had a chapter. So the couple of us that are here have always been pretty much independent members. There's also the climate public service announcement. And for anybody that's interested in this, I'll put my email in the chat and you can get a hold of me on any of these things. But it's a 30-second public service announcement that's beautifully done, and you can get on your local TV stations for free talking about climate and military impact on the climate. So that's another project that is just out there, waiting for anybody to pick up on who wants to. One of the Josh mentioned being chair of the membership committee. What I'd love to see happen would be a committee, a subcommittee of that would work specifically on retention and recruitment and revive the old toolkit that we had for attracting people and keeping people and stuff that's just pretty much been by the boards at this point. But to talk with chapters and independent members who are doing a good job, finding out the best things that they're doing and coming up with new ideas and just coming up with that list that we can work off of to attract and retain members. And then there's another thing that we can do to increase membership. I've been going to a VA for just a couple of years now since Sue retired from a real job with real benefits. And so I've been going there for a couple of years, and a lot of you have been going to VA for a long time, and you already know this, but I was very impressed by the fact that when I go to the VA, I can walk in there with VFP material and just walk around and talk to people and say, hey, how would you like to see this thing from a veterans organization and blah, blah, blah. And I haven't been kicked out yet. And have got a really good response. And it's something we can do every time we go to the VA. Just have some of that stuff with you, a membership brochure, a business card with the QR code on the back, whatever, a Peace and Planet News. So that's another easy thing that we can do. Another thing that we could do to increase membership that's a little more strategic oriented and good old VFP. Now, if we had a strategic plan that we could lay out for everybody at the beginning of the year, you'd probably wonder if you were in the same organization or not. But at any rate, we do know the importance of trying to work strategically. And this is one thing that I think fits that bill. And it also would help us build membership. It's custom made for VFP to be able to work with local, functioning, effective local coalitions. And we could work with people, for example, who can't stand the fact that insurance companies write our national health insurance policy, or that oil companies write our energy policy, or the highway lobby writes our transportation policy, or the merchants of death write our foreign policy. And that is easy to do with working with ongoing affiliates of Move to Amend around the country to get local resolutions passed to city councils, county councils, to say, and we're putting together a model resolution that could be used to say to city councils, here are the things that we're concerned about that corporations continue to do to ruin the planet, and et cetera, et cetera. And we want to have our city council say to our congressional delegation, we want you to endorse and join the 90 some other members of the U.S. House who have co-sponsored the resolution to take corporate personhood away from corporations and end money equals speech. And easy peasy, getting a resolution before city council, but it puts you in working relationships with these other groups that are our natural allies. And I appreciate Josh mentioning the fact that right around the anniversary of the invasion of Iraq, which, as we know, is March 19th, a day or two from there, VFP is going to have a national screening of the movie What I Want You to Know, which is produced by Iraq and Afghanistan veterans. Our former director, Garrett, is in there as well. And it's a really good documentary, no holds barred documentary about what those young men and women, why they went into the military and how they realized they were getting screwed in the whole moral injury business. The reason I'm bringing that up is it's not going to happen till third week in March. We don't have the date yet, but there's going to be a discussion following the film, and it's a perfect thing for local chapters and independent members to go out and promote and try to attract some of these post 9/11 vets that we know we need to be talking with, who may not have heard of VFP before. This is a great opportunity to do that. And that's about it for me. I wanted to just respond to one thing in the chat that Ray Nakanene from our new chapter in Mississippi, yay, guys, way to go, wants to know if it can work with the People's Forum at Jackson on January 20th. And the blanket assumption, it's stated in our statement of purpose, is that as an organization, we trust members to do the right thing when they go out to work for peace. And if you think that's something that would be good to do, please go do it. Meet perhaps some new people, whatever. Learn from that. Let us know. But that's not anything any local chapter or individual has to get permission for. Can I go work with the ABC group that's doing something next month? So anyway, I just want to mention that, and that's it for me. And thank you once again.